So here we are today with our third webinar in our series of zero waste lifestyle topics. And we call it Hot Trends for a Cool Planet. And we are so excited to be focusing on zero waste fashion for our webinar today. The past year was easier for everyone to be less wasteful because we didn't go anywhere. So we didn't need to shop for new clothes. However, now that we are preparing to return to normalcy, it might be a great time for us to reevaluate some of our old shopping habits and perhaps start a new one that's more aligned with our personal values and environmental responsibility. I'm Neha Dhanik, your moderator today, and a program director at Sustainable Westchester. It is a local nonprofit organization that brings a variety of exciting and impactful programs in clean energy, clean transportation, and zero waste and recycling, of course, for our members. That comprises of 44 Westchester municipalities and the county. It is my privilege to introduce our speakers today. Our first speaker is legislator Katherine Parker, who represents District 7 in the Westchester County Board, where she is currently a co-chair of the Westchester County Pandemic Task Force that was initiated last year. Legislator Parker serves in many committees, among which is her role as the chair of the Planning, Economic Development, and Energy Committee. She is known throughout Westchester County for her work on environmental issues. She has sponsored, co-sponsored, and passed legislations to ban dirty residual heating oil and a ban on styrofoam, to name just a few. Katherine is a fourth-generation Westchester resident and has volunteered for many causes and organizations in the hopes of making her community a better place for all. Thank you, Katherine, for joining us today. Our next speaker is Sarah Goddard, who is a member of the Rye City Council and publisher of Green That Life, which is a guide to sustainable lifestyle. Sarah is the founder and former chair of Rye Sustainability Committee. In her capacity as the committee chair, Sarah was the chief architect of Rye's first sustainability plan, which was later adopted as the city's blueprint for sustainability goals. She spearheaded and drafted the first reusable bag law in Westchester County, earning her group national awards and recognition. Sarah is also a board member of Sustainable Westchester and consults with numerous advocacy groups on their sustainability and environmental goals. Welcome, Sarah, and thank you especially for suggesting today's topic for our webinar series. Our final guest speaker is Denise Austin. She is the Outreach and Administrative Manager for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Family Services of Westchester, whose mission is to help children achieve their full potential through professionally supported one-on-one mentoring relationships. Denise joined the organization in early 2019. In her current role, she manages the clothing and household goods donation program, coordinates volunteer and family inquiries, and provides program management for fundraising and family events. Thank you, Denise. And we look forward to hearing from all of our speakers today. But before I hand it over to them, it is important for us to recognize the magnitude of the problem so we can better appreciate the solutions. To begin with, here's a simple hard truth. Fashion has become another single-use product. With the rise of fast fashion, which promises cheaper, faster, and higher volumes, which allows us to buy a $15 shirt and then throw it in the trash whenever we get bored of it. Of course, this is all very highly profitable for the industry, but it only really benefits the very few at the top. To meet the demands of this rapid fashion, most of the manufacturing, as we know, is outsourced to places with cheaper labor and minimal regulations. Until 5 decades ago, most of the clothes consumed in the USA were made in the USA. Today, it's less than 3%. So are we as consumers contributing to some kind of problem? To answer that question, we need to really see where these clothes are made. We'll get to the how later, but let's first see where they were made. This is a photo of one such building in Bangladesh, which collapsed in April of 2013. More than 1,000 textile workers died and another 2,500 were injured. They were all mostly women and children, and this was the fourth largest industrial disaster in history. In the days and weeks before the tragedy, many of the clothes that were sewn were packed in boxes and shipped to brands and retailers around the world. The truth is, we bought and wore these garments stitched together in tragedy. Now that we have covered the where, I request our first speaker, Katherine Parker, to walk us through the journey of how these clothes are made. Katherine, over to you.
Thank you, Neha. And first of all, let me say thank you to Sustainable Westchester for bringing us together for this really important conversation. And thanks to my friend, Sarah Goddard, who brought me in to do this program, and my friend Maria Genovese, who helped with getting the word out about it, and to Neha for putting this all together. So you all know me as a legislator, but what some of you may not be aware is that I also have been a real retailer for over 23 years. You know, it has given me a very interesting perspective, having worked on the policy side of environmental policy, but also seeing it from the retail side. So I sold retail lifestyle brands like Patgonia, the North Face, Barber, a company called Rambler's Way Farm. And several of those brands belong to a trade group known as the Outdoor Retailers Association. So as a member of Outdoor Retailers, I too was part of this large group of retailers and manufacturers that were concerned about climate change. And we're focused on how we as part of the fashion and outdoor industry could reduce our carbon footprint. Now, if you think about it, you think really they were really interested about this, and yes, because it's good for their business. You know, there are 50 million Americans in this country that choose to enjoy regular outdoor recreation. But if you have fires like in California and floods and melting glaciers, Glacier National Park, and drought, that's not really going to encourage people to spend time in that outdoors. So I think everybody sees this as good for the bottom line. Let's talk about climate change, though, and the issue of the fashion industry. So problem number one, carbon emissions. And according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, the fashion industry produces 10% of CO2 each year. That's over 2.1 billion metric tons of greenhouse gases. So as Neha mentioned, you know, this year due to COVID, we have, you know, taken a little bit of a pause on the rapid growth of greenhouse gases. But I'm afraid that once we're out of the worst of the pandemic, that we're going to see our numbers continue to grow. And according to management consultant McKinsey, that number may reach 2.7 billion metric tons by 2030. So in less than 10 years. Pretty scary stuff, considering that the IPCC said that to reach our goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius of global warming, the fashion industry actually has to almost cut their emissions in half from where we are today. So not only has, you know, let's talk about where we are with what causes the carbon emissions. So manufacturing has gone overseas. I don't think that surprises anyone, but sometimes a garment is actually making several trips before it even gets to market. As an example, you can have a sweater where the merino wool is worsted in Italy, and then it's sent over and pieced together in Asia. It's then sent back to France, to the manufacturer, where it's ultimately then sent across to the United States and distributed to stores. So as we can see, that's really showing a lot of carbon footprint for that one garment. And what compounds the matter even more is that as fashion has become fast fashion, manufacturers are under more pressure to bring things to market faster. So they're actually foregoing the usual shipping by ship, cargo ship, and instead sending by air. That can, if this trend continues, CO2 emissions could actually double in just a few years. And also think of this, we're a bit of the problem too. So many of us have been relying on online shopping. It only adds to the carbon footprint. And when we get the clothes that we purchase online, if they don't fit or we don't like them and we send them back, that adds to it as well. Water, next problem, Neha. So water depletion, as you see this nice little graphic of jeans. So cotton, we all grew up hearing, how about this for a slogan? The fabric of our lives. Does anybody remember that? And you know, production of cotton is about 30% of all our clothing, and it's a very thirsty crop. It uses almost 3% of fresh water worldwide. And what makes that even worse is in the United States, to protect this precious crop, we use almost a quarter of all pesticides to keep that safe. Once the cotton is picked, the process to make a pair of jeans uses a tremendous amount of water. You have the dyeing process alone, which is a many-step process, and it often requires many rinses and washings to get the denim color just right for the consumer. I remember a few years ago when jeans were just the hottest commodity before we all had transitioned to our COVID yoga pants. You know, manufacturers would come out with 30 different jeans in a season with different rinses, different leg cuts, Japanese denim. And that just, you know, again, made it even worse for the environment. And the dyeing process can have its own negative impact. We've seen in China, which is actually the largest producer of the denim material, where rivers have turned blue from the dyes that have been used, because the dye is then released by the manufacturers. There's very little regulatory oversight. They release it right into the rivers, as well as chemicals that they also use in the process. So it's just really environmentally not good. Next slide. Microplastics. So it's pretty cold today. I don't know how many of you are in a nice soft fleece, but fleece is actually a microfiber, which is a microplastic. I know I have a few in my winter wardrobe too, and they are very cozy. But at the end of the day, when we look at that plastic, we have to remember it's actually started as a fossil fuel, petroleum. When you say it that way, it certainly seems like it's a dirty fabric. Making plastic clothes, in essence, requires 342 million barrels of oil a year. The microfibers, too, that are used in this clothing are incredibly thin, thinner than a human hair, and break down into microscopic microparticles. The material from our fleeces and clothing constantly sheds, and in the wash, and when it gets in the wash, it ends up in our sanitary sewer system at our wastewater treatment plants. And the plants cannot get this very microscopic plastic. So what happens is that ends up going out into the water, our waterways. Many of you have probably heard of the 5 gyres of the ocean. which are filled with microfibers and microplastics. A study commissioned by Patagonia actually found that one synthetic fleece released as many as 250,000 plastic microfibers when each time it's machine washed. And these microfibers don't degrade like natural fibers. Next slide. And the problem is definitely waste. They say that 60% of clothing is thrown away after 1 year. Again, with our clothing that we're buying online, when you're returning it, chances are pretty high also that that returned material, which has never been worn, that clothing is going to be thrown away as well from the vendor, as opposed to spending money to have it restocked. Next slide. So what can we do? We'll start with what I call the perfect is the enemy of the good. So we know we're creatures of habit. We do shop, but we need to be a little bit more conscious about how we're shopping. By quality. So you can see the picture on the right, that's from a company called Barber. And if you also see the picture behind me, I think this is, am I in the right direction here? I can't see myself. The other way. All right, there we go. So this is my Barber jacket that I've had since I was 25. Few years ago, shall we say. I still have it. I still wear it. And the thing that I like about Barber and that they encourage is that when you feel that it's not as waterproof, you bring it in to a Barber dealer. The dealer sends it to their repair warehouse in New Hampshire, and they will re-wax it and refurbish it. So they last forever. And as a retailer selling Barber, I can tell you, I remember one day a gentleman coming into my store. He was probably in his late 60s, and he handed me his Barber jacket, and he told me he had that Barber jacket from the time he was in college. And, you know, it's one of those things that they just don't really wear out. They're really well made. I also wanted to touch upon a company like Patgonia. And I don't, by the way, I'm not making, I don't have my store anymore, so I'm not, you know, encouraging people as a way to have you come in to shop with me. But Patgonia, I've really admired that company. The founder, Yvon Chouinard, once said, "Rampant consumerism is not attractive." And, you know, he's been really fighting this battle for a very long time to encourage people to really use their clothes and really consider whether or not you need to make the purchase. And I don't know, some of you may remember a few years ago, Patagonia took out a full page ad in the New York Times and other newspapers across the country for Black Friday. And the ad said, "Don't buy this jacket." And it showed one of their most popular styles, the R2 jacket. And it went on to explain all the downside in producing that jacket. How, you know, from water usage to the 20 pounds of CO2 used just to get that jacket to the warehouse, to the 2/3 of its weight that's in wasted material. And at the end of the ad, it said, "Don't buy what you don't need. Think twice before you buy anything." And you know, some of you may have heard the term greenwashing. This is not greenwashing. Since 1970s, Patagonia has been repairing clothes that they've manufactured for their customers. And in 2005, they actually started a mobile repair cafe that visits college campuses to teach kids how to mend their clothes. And as they say, reduce, repair, recycle, and lastly, and most importantly, refuse. I think those are words for all of us to live by. Next slide, Neha.
Great, thank you so much, Katherine. That was a great overview, and sort of a terrifying one in a way to sort of peel back the curtains and see all of the problems that are embedded in the fashion industry. Before I start on solutions, I do want to thank Maria and Neha. I mean, she has been working on putting this webinar together. It seems like day and night, and at the last minute, I sent her a slide this morning, and she did it with a smile. So thank you so much, and thank you to my friend Katherine, and as well to Denise for agreeing to be on here today. So as I said, we've heard a lot of problems, and Katherine has touched a bit about the solutions on how to make sustainable purchases. If you are getting overwhelmed about what to do, just take a pause, take a deep breath, and remember that you can make a difference, and we're going to figure out how to do that. And this is also the one thing that you should remember is this is not about denying yourself beautiful, stylish clothes. I love clothes. I have always loved clothes. And one of the really sad things about the pandemic is I've been in sweatpants for the last 12 months. So to get dressed up today was a lot of fun. This is about making smart choices that are right for you, for your wallet, and for the planet. And so we're going to work our way up, as Katherine touched on, this hierarchy of sustainable fashion priorities to learn how to make environmentally friendly choices. So we're starting here at the bottom, buying new. Katherine touched on it a little bit. Try to buy less of new. But if you are going to buy new, take a few moments to do a bit of background checking. First, get to know the clothes that you plan to invest in, and think of them as investments, not just as frivolous purchases. Who are they made by? What are they made of? Take 5 minutes to read the brand's website. Is sustainability front and center and a part of a major component of their business model? Do they use ethical labor practices, organic or other sustainable materials? Do they use minimal raw materials, water and other raw materials in their production processes? Do they use recycled materials for their packaging? Again, don't go crazy. 5 minutes and you'll get a sense by visiting a website what they prioritize. What I'm asking you to do here is to empower yourself. And that's why I have that bullet point, knowledge is power. Because it's so important that we consumers stay informed and become conscious consumers. It'll also help to avoid being fooled by company greenwashing tactics. And these are tactics that are used by some companies that tout big environmental claims that really are not substantive. You can check labels, as you can see here on my Athleta top that I have worn quite religiously these last few months, and it says there that it's a B Corporation. That's a major accreditation agency, and it designates businesses that meet the highest standards of verified social and environmental performance. But what I also like about these agencies is if you go to their websites, most of them, if not all, have databases of all of the products and brands that they've accredited. So you can search by sector, you can search by name, and boom, you've got a list of, the tip top sustainable brands that you can start shopping from. So that's one way, is to empower yourself, and I encourage you to do that, but also trust your instincts. Even if you don't know that much about a brand's sustainable practices, you can always use your common sense and let your instincts guide you. Check the product. Is it made from good quality materials that last, like Katherine's Barber jacket? And let your instincts guide you again on other aspects. How green, for example, are shoes that are made from recycled plastic bottle caps when they're actually wrapped and stuffed in plastic and then shipped to you in more unnecessary packaging? or if the company sells just one green product, but everything else that they sell is fast fashion. And then the other thing that drives me crazy is packaging and wrapping. When you go to the store, and there are those stores that we know, and you buy that one item, maybe it's a tiny little scarf or something, and they bring out all the tissue and they wrap it all up and then they put it in a fancy bag, and it's all of this unnecessary packaging, and most of it is not even recyclable. So, of course, the easiest way not to be fooled is to limit your purchases of new, but empower yourself. And then once you make those purchases of your new and also of your used, treat them with care so they last for years and years and years. Use the cold cycle in your washing machine, and of course use environmentally friendly cleaning products. I'm wearing a few items, modeling a few items here today. This is actually a Zara scarf. It's, you know, it's the worst of the worst of fast fashion, right? And I've had it for probably over 10 years. It's something that perhaps, you know, if I had not treated it well, it might have been in the, you know, in the donation pile, or maybe even chucked after a couple of years. But because I've taken good care of it, it's lasted me for a very, very long time. So you don't have to make, you know, expensive purchases. You know, touch, feel, and use your common sense to guide you. The last thing I will say is vote with your wallet. And what do I mean by that? Well, as we've learned from Katherine and Neha, the current fashion industry business model is completely unsustainable for the planet and for our fashion's low-wage workers. But it's certainly working for the owners of these brands. So how do we make it hurt for them? Well, vote with your wallet. Put pressure on the industry to change by rewarding the companies that are environmentally conscious and staying away from the brands that are not. The good news is that brands are taking notice of the change in consumer attitudes by pledging to adopt more circular design processes. They're committing to increase their use of sustainable and recycled fabrics, and they're eliminating toxic chemicals in their production processes. Of course, we need to put more pressure, but it is a start. Next slide, Neha, thank you. So buying new clothing from sustainable brands is good. What's better? Buying used or pre-loved, as it's affectionately called now. And there's more good news here. As we as a society push for a greener way of living, it's heartening to hear that actually the secondhand clothing market is booming. And as the industry responds to consumer demand, the choices and the options available for us shoppers in the resale market will only expand and be enhanced. That is a good thing for the planet and for your wallet. The selections of pre-loved clothing and accessories are endless, from kids and men's clothing and accessories, high-end luxury items. I have here, these are my my Jimmy Choo shoes, which I could never afford to be able to buy them new, but I bought them actually 10 years ago from a luxury secondhand site, and they've been terrific. They have a little bit of scuffing on the heels because I wear them quite a bit, or I used to before the pandemic, and I'm going to keep wearing them. So, you know, you can definitely shop online, but of course we have our physical stores, the thrift stores, the vintage consignment stores. And what I would say to you is support local. So before you go automatically to online, first check out your local businesses and see what they have to offer. There are quite a few in the area, and please start with them first. Next slide. Another economical way to acquire new but gently used clothing is a clothes swap. It's sort of a party that you can have virtually or in person, where you can exchange gently used clothing. And anyone can host a clothes swap. Of course, it's a little tricky these days to do during the pandemic, but what you would do is you would just set a certain set of ground rules, how many clothing items, for example, that each person would bring, the type of clothing, the format of the swap. And then at the end of the party, you can simply donate or recycle any unwanted items. As for online swap organizations, I'm not that much of an expert on those. There are a few prominent sites such as Swap Society, but it's the same thing. You have swap sites that can be specialized to cater in luxury items, men's, vintage, kids, clothing, really anything. And then of course there are the Facebook groups and swap apps. Some of the popular swap apps are This for That, Rehash, Trade Made, and they all work in a similar fashion where you would upload photos of the item you want to swap and any details, and then you would barter or swap with other members. Next slide, please. And this is the last one in the hierarchy of individual actions, but the most important, rethink. What I'm saying here is that to be sustainable in your purchases, be informed, buy less, and reuse what you already have in your closet. Change your mindset from treating clothes like yet another single-use product, and instead view them as durable, reusable items that you'll enjoy for years, as investments. And before you give in to that impulse to buy something, whether it's new or even used, take inventory of your closet. Do you have 3 black skirts? Do you really need another black skirt? Or if you have a torn or stained piece of clothing, figure out if it can be repaired or cleaned. I don't know if you have heard of repair cafes. This is a very popular concept, and unfortunately the pandemic has sort of put the kibosh on most of them, but they'll come back. And what it is if you have something that needs to be repaired, clothing or anything else really, you bring it to the repair cafe, and people who are experts will teach you. They will not repair it for you, but they will teach you how to repair it. And then you leave with your item repaired and maybe a friend in the process, and also a new skill. It's a wonderful thing, and I'd love to do a webinar on it at some point. I think back on when I was a kid, and my winter coat, my first winter coat as a kid, was my mother's winter's coat from when she was a kid. But the thing is not so much, and I think about it now, it's not that so much that it was made from good quality materials and all that stuff, but the mindset back then, I didn't question it at all. The mindset back then was, hey, you keep what's well made and you use it until it's just a bunch of threads and you can't use it anymore. So in a way, I've sort of struggled with this idea. People say, oh, if you haven't worn something for a year, just get rid of it or donate it or whatever. I sort of struggle with that because I have pieces of clothing and accessories that I've owned for years and years and actually decades, and they go in and out of fashion. And I actually was just looking at some in my closet today, and these are I bought these new probably 15 years ago and loved them, and they're definitely high end, but then they went out of style, new style came in, and now they're back in style again. And I'm not quite sure I agree with the one year thing, unless it's really something you don't like. So the last thing I will say is, sure, we've heard all of this bad news, and I will say, do not despair. I was thinking about what Elizabeth Colbert had said, and her mom is here today. I read The Sixth Extinction and have digested so much of it. What she says is, sure, humans have created this mess that we're in, but humans have enormous capacity and resolve and intellect to come up with solutions. And we shouldn't be contending with this mess in the first place, but it is here, and let's be the ones to fix it. And I would add, however, that the burden is not only on us to fix this mess that we face. Corporations must also play an enormous part by buying less and disposing of unwanted items in an environmentally responsible way and purchasing from sustainable brands. All of these actions that we take can make a difference in helping transform our throwaway culture. And all those individual actions collectively and cumulatively put pressure on the industry to make systemic and institutional change. And before I have a resources page, but before I go, I don't know if you can see my sweater here. It's a little pink sweater. And I was looking today as I put it on, I said, I know I've had this quite a while, and I didn't realize how long I have had it. This is a picture of me 16 years ago with a lot less wrinkles. And my son, who's sitting on my lap, is now a senior in college. So you can keep things for quite a while. And then the last slide for me is just a resources. I've written quite a bit about this topic and about the industry. And there's some articles, but there are also some great books as well, including one by a woman named Elizabeth Klein, who has written 2 books called The Conscious Consumer and Conscious Closet, and Overdressed. And then Tatiana Schlossberg just came out with a book named Inconspicuous Consumption, which deals with this whole concept of, rethink, buy less, use what you have more. But that's all I have to, and I will pass it along to Denise.
I am unmuted.
Yes, okay,
Can
good.
everybody hear
Perfect.
me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, we can now.
Okay, so again, thank you, Catherine and Sarah. It was really just an eye-opening and fantastic discussion, and Naya and Maria for inviting Big Brothers Big Sisters to join the discussion today. So what can I do? Donate. So just real quickly, Neha mentioned this in my introduction. Big Brothers Big Sisters of Family Services of Westchester. I mention that because our core mission is really doing youth mentoring for children in Westchester County age 7 to 17. Our clothing donation program, which I'll talk about in more depth in a couple of minutes, is a vital source of support, financial support for our programs. And in addition to that, it is a community service, to everything that Catherine and Sarah talked about reusing and recycling. And it's interesting over the last year in particular, since the COVID, with the COVID emergency, if I've talked to 1,000 people directly in the community who are now taking the opportunity, they're sitting in their homes, or they're either they decide to downsize, or they're sitting in their homes and they're looking at their closet, and they have the time to go through everything. And so they're like, I want to clear my closet out because I just want more space, so simple as that. But what can I do with it? And, so that they give us a call. So we provide a community service there. And again, it totally supports the core mission of our program. So our clothing donation program, if you can just click to the next slide, we kind of do 3 things. So I'm going to kind of touch on each one of these. And so pickup services. Many folks on this call, you may know Big Brothers Big Sisters. In the past have received what I call the green postcards. That's us, that's Big Brothers Big Sisters. When COVID hit back in March last year, we had to suspend our full pickup service, but we've recently been able to restart that, where we can accept clothing, footwear, linens, and accessories. So it's very simple. It's a phone call, an online application. Our service partner will come pick up your stuff, and if folks would like a tax receipt, I send that out. I send them out to them. The other option that we have that, again, since COVID, when our pickup service was suspended, we're like, okay, now what? So we've started to put a couple of drop-off bins. We have two, one in White Plains and one in Cortland. You can see the information on the slide. We'd love to get a couple more bins out there in the county. So a couple of things I want to mention about this. Very often when I talk to some of the folks in the community, folks are reluctant to leave stuff in bins because they're concerned, oh, I have these really nice items and whatnot. I leave them in there. Will they get damaged by the weather? Does it become an untidy mess? That's one of the challenges we have with even bin placement. Or, you know, someone else is going to come in and take the stuff. So what I try and underscore with the folks, the donors who reach out to Big Brothers Big Sisters, the good news is I don't have that many of them out there. So I know where they are. I know what's happening. I also know that they're maintained on a regular basis. And I can say that with a high level of confidence to everyone. And I know our donors really appreciate that. So as they're kind of purging their closets and, you know, letting go of some of those items that they know I should have let go and all of that stuff, there's just a comfort. They're like, you know what, I feel comfortable. They're going to put there and they're going to get to where they need to get to. The third thing that we've started to do are drive-by events. So this might be hard to see here. This was a pop the trunk clothing drive. So once again, when COVID hit, you know, some of the traditional things that you might do, you couldn't do. So we're like, all righty, let's just do a drive-by event. In this particular case, we partnered with the Lions Club of Lower Westchester, and we ended up on a beautiful Saturday in October. And the Lions Club, interestingly enough, another service organization, they were challenged during COVID with what, you know, we want to do something, but we can't. All the traditional things we could do, we can't do. So again, I was fortunate to partner up with them. We had a beautiful Saturday morning and folks from around the county came out in droves. And we probably had one of the best clothing drives we ever did. So we have three different ways of where Big Brothers Big Sisters can accept donations. The donations do help us raise funds for our program. So this last slide, and this is sort of what I kind of wanted to also talk about is the program. So we do have our service partners that will purchase, these items from us. We raise funds from it. And what it's all about for us is serving the community. So these are some pictures of the children that we serve across Westchester County. The top one there was a bingo event we had for some children. It was right pre-COVID. You can see there, nobody has masks on. And the other two, when COVID hit, some of the things we tried to, care for with the children, some from, under-resourced homes would be able to provide laptops. So the young girl there with her unicorn slippers, again, from funds raised, we were able to provide laptops to children who didn't have them. And then at our summer drive-by party, that's the lady with the 2 knapsacks. We were able to provide, knapsacks filled with school supplies for children. So I think the summary point I want to make is that, Big Brothers Big Sisters, again, our core mission is youth mentoring. The clothing donation program, they'll help us support that program. And it's also a community service. I'm grateful for the folks in the community that have called me and been able to connect them up with clothing and for, basically it's a win-win for everybody. Folks are trying to clear out their closets for whatever the reason it might be. They've just, I've had some funny conversations with folks. They're like, I thought I had to move until I cleared out my closet. I'm able to donate it to you. And now I have plenty of room. I don't need to move now. So anyway, that's my little bit of a silly anecdote, but if anyone wants more information, how we can donate, either for the pickups, any suggestions on bin placements, or would like to, partner with us to host a clothing drive, please, I'm happy to talk further. So again, thank you, Maria, Neha, and Katherine and Sarah. I appreciate the time.
No, thank you, Denise. And it is truly amazing and humbling to see how our simple act of donation can create so many opportunities in the community. And to imagine there can be so much more that can be achieved if we all did our part. Because as we see here, only we can actually recycle 95% of our clothing potentially, but in reality, we are at just 15% right now. Westchester County provides us many more opportunities to recycle more, and I would love to welcome back County Legislator Katherine Parker to tell us more about these options, please.
Sure, I'll be brief because I know we're running along, but our energy director and head of our Office of Sustainability, Peter McCart, when he first came on as energy director, one of the things that he signed up Westchester was a partnership with County Recycling to have textile bins in all of Westchester's county parks. And like many of the municipalities, I know City of Rye has also had a partnership for textile recycling in one of our parks, Town of Mamaroneck, Scarsdale, Pelham. It's a great way to make it very easy for people to give new life to their clothing. 45% of the clothes that are donated to through our partnership goes right back to thrift stores and other countries where people are really in need of clothing. Some of it that is not salvageable or wearable is used for cleaning. Others are turned into insulation and other things around the house. So it all is getting a second opportunity at life and not being incinerated. This next slide is something that Sarah and I started with our friend Kristen Jouts. We've had 3 of these zero waste days in partnership with Westchester County for the hazardous materials, the household materials recovery program that we've been running at Playland. And I can tell you, it is a full day of people coming in and out between, they even line up before 9 o'clock, but we usually get somewhere in the neighborhood of, 3,000 vehicles that are coming through during that day. And some of the organizations that we've partnered with are the Mount Vernon Animal Shelter. So for people with towels and sheets and things like that, that gives really great second life to those items. We've partnered with the Sharing Shelf, which provides clothing to low-income children in Westchester County, and that's been a big success. And then again with the county recycling that's based in Rybrook. So it's been a really good event, and I would suggest if anybody is considering doing something like that in your community too, that this is a great way to sort of pool everybody together. So you have this one day where people can, have cleared out a lot of things from their homes and, help out with some other organizations. Next slide. So this last one, one of the great uses of your old jeans, we talked about jeans in the beginning, is that they're used now to make insulation in sustainable architecture. And they're a great insulator for both sound and thermal conductivity. And it even rivals fiberglass, but it's better than fiberglass because there are no off gases or VOCs. And in Westchester, I just want to give a shout out to my friend Jim Kaloran, who many of you know, he was the executive director of Habitat for Humanity. Now Habitat for Humanity is called the Fuller Center, so he's executive director of that. And he is building a house for a low-income family using passive house design. So it'll be zero greenhouse gas emissions. And he's using denim insulation for that. So it's just a really good next life to our jeans. And I think that's it for my presentation. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So with so many solutions that we have discussed today, I hope, everyone in the audience has found something to go away with. Something that will help you in your journey towards a new fashion trend. And here's another tool in the toolbox, Sustainable Westchester's Recycle Right app. I will just encourage everyone to check it out. It's a free and to use app downloadable from your app stores. And quickly running past through all the slides, this is, I hope this is a takeaway for all of us. Buy less, choose well, and make it last. And we are so grateful to all our speakers today for sharing their expert views and thoughts on this subject. With that, we have a few
I do
minutes
actually
left.
have a few questions in the
Sure,
chat.
we have a few
Sorry.
minutes left.
Yes.
So let's get
Okay,
to those.
great. I am
Thank you,
going
Maria.
to turn on my video, and I'm going to throw out the questions to whomever actually wants to answer them. A lot of the questions are actually around donations. Some have answered themselves, if you will, in the chat, but is someone is asking, are there donation sites that should be avoided in terms of where the clothes actually end up? Is that of a big concern? And in related, the question also is what actually happens to many of the clothes that come out of the bins, generally either across the donation industry or maybe with specific donation sites? Anyone?
So Maria, I'll answer it. On the first one, no, I'm not concerned with it. From the bins that we have out there, and it's just the two, what we try and do to respect the folks who allow us to place them is to make sure they're maintained and frankly kept tidy. I think what folks is sometimes you'll see, and I've seen it, and I understand why, especially with, you'll get bins and there's lots of bags, and it's untidy, and businesses obviously don't like that, and then people walk away thinking, oh gosh, what happened? So, relative to Big Brothers Big Sisters, no, I'm not concerned with that. I know our bins are maintained. And if there's ever an issue, and I've had one or two out of it, maybe 1,000 phone calls. Folks know who I am. They're calling me up, and I'm getting it, and I personally get it. I get it resolved. Right. So what happens with this stuff? Couple of different things. In some scenarios, the clothes are sold to thrift shops in lower income areas, where then people there can buy them. So I like to use the example of the pretty Lily Pulitzer dress that, is $150 or $200 dress. And as someone said, it's used once. So now someone in a lower income area may be able to buy that for $5 or $10. So that's one thing. Another thing, some of it's bundled up and it's sent to other nonprofits or in other lower income areas around the country. So I know I can speak for Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'm very comfortable and very confident what happens with it, and it's important to us that we maintain it, both from the community and the business who's allowed us to place something there, and also so for donors who are donating, the confidence that we're paying attention to it.
Great.
Yeah.
I also go ahead, Sarah.
I guess I wanted to add to what Denise is saying here, and I think this is a really important point, is that that whole concept of empowering yourself through knowledge and being informed as a consumer or as a donor in this case. And Big Brothers Big Sister has an established and respected presence in our community. So that would be the first place to go, really, in our area if you were donating. But if you did have doubts, there are, again, these agencies for not-for-profits. You've got Charity Navigator, and you also have GuideStar, and those are excellent places to visit, the websites. And again, you can just do a quick Google search of the name and see what their reputation is. And then, of course, ask your friends, ask around, all of those sorts of things. So it goes both ways for, obviously the organization to put themselves out there and say, yes, hey, we are reputable, but also a little bit of just a few minutes of background checking on the organization.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, and there were a few other questions around things like some of the pre-owned sites like ThredUp and the Real. Also, the same is true of rental sites, which is something that Sarah noted in the comments that she didn't touch on, and I kind of jumped in and answered that. I have a little bit of background in that from a prior life. So it's the same sort of thing. It's about doing your homework. So each of the rental companies have a slightly different business premise, and read customer reviews. You'll see where the pitfalls are. We've found in my prior life that often the most expensive items are the best things to basically rent, because you are not necessarily going to plunk down, a great deal of money on a dress you'll wear once. So I think you just have to be sort of smart consumers, and there are all sorts of places that you can learn more about each of the companies, from the companies themselves and consumer sites. And the same, I believe, and Sarah, you can speak to this, or Catherine, about those sites that are also sale sites, for pre-loved items. And you want to take that a little?
Yeah, this was sort of a personal experience with me with the rental. I used Rent the Runway, and it was quite a while ago. It was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And I thought, oh, this is great, because, you buy an item for an event, a big event, and then you wonder what to do with it afterwards. And so I thought, oh, great, rent it. And then the way it worked was you had about a 3-day window, or very short window, in which to receive it. And then you could only try it on then. And I thought, when it arrived, I thought, oh my gosh, what if it doesn't fit me? What if it doesn't look good? And now it's, a day before the event, and I'm stuck with this, and I've paid for it, and it just sort of defeated the whole purpose. So it didn't work for me, and maybe they've changed their business model since then. And I would be curious to hear from the audience in that regard. But yeah, that was just the issue, and that's why I didn't bring it up as an option. But the pre-loved sites, I have to say, the Real is huge. It's established. It's if you want to get a beautiful luxury item, you can go there. But they now have expanded so much that they've moved into even sort of mid-market clothing. But then there are other sites like ThredUp. Vestiaire Collective is another one. They're just dozens and dozens of sites, and I did do a post on the ones from the selling perspective, but it's the same idea, whether you're buying or selling.
Right. So I will say that I know that Rent the Runway does sometimes send alternatives, so I think you sort of have to
check it out again.
Figure that out in advance, if you will, so that you aren't 2 days out from your event stuck with the sparkly gray that doesn't fit. Also, someone does comment that, Stacy, thank you, yes, that Rent the Runway has stores. There was always one on 23rd Street in the city. Maybe not as convenient anymore. And Stacy, do they have more actual retail?
I think they do.
Okay.
Neha told me to introduce myself. My name is Stacy Winnick, and I run a buying and selling page, Chappaqua Mom Sales. It's on Facebook. We have over 9,000 people, and anybody can join. So anybody who wants to join. And we have 5,000 on the wait list, because we vet every single person. And just to tell you this about sustainability, our site is total with sustainability. I blog on the site. I recently got an incredible Hermes belt for $35. Yes.
Is it available for loan? Like, do you do a personal loaner program?
Yes. And so, like, buyer beware. I tell people how to sell their things. I also have, not to like totally advertise my thing, but I teach a free class called Turn Your Clutter into Cash. And I have a YouTube channel. But it's like, you are my soul sisters here. Everybody here is my soul sister. And most of the things I wear have been bought on my page. And we also donate on my page. And we're doing an initiative where we're doing Easter dresses for little girls for the Ossining Children's Center. And we collected over 60 Easter dresses. We're sorting the Easter dresses. Now I have to think about if I'm going to dry clean these Easter dresses. I got a dry cleaner to dry clean the Easter dresses for free, but I might not do it, being sustainable with the dry cleaning. But I think it's so important to sell your stuff. I mean, and give away too. That is my mission. But I will not let things go to the curb.
Can you put your information in the chat for everyone?
Yes, I will.
That would be great.
I wanted to bring up something that the legislator, Catherine it is?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you knew this, but dumpster diving is a big thing, and especially everywhere. One of the biggest offenders with dumpsters is Ulta. What they do is they put in blow dryers that are working in the dumpster and cut the cords and pour nail polish over it. Their dumpsters are full of things, and I was thinking it would be great for Sustainable Westchester to get into law. You cannot dump working items. You have to dump them. There are makeup kits in those dumpsters. Sephora, Ulta. You go to Walgreens dumpster, and Walgreens dumpster has new stuff in there, and they destroy it so they can return it.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
I put a message. I will put Chappaqua Mom Sales, and everybody go on there, and there are people donating, and we love to partner up with Big Brother Big Sister too, and it's a great organization. So
Thank you.
And everybody here will be accepted immediately.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
That's great. So I think that our last question is, I think we may have actually covered this last question about the Big Brothers Big Sisters items that don't get sold, like ripped t-shirts and textiles. Are they dumped and sent to other countries to be dumped, or what's the situation there? And then I think that has to be our last question.
No, I mean, so our service partner, we go through stuff and you grade it. So there's some stuff that can be reused, and then there's some stuff that just needs to be recycled, like thrown out, and it gets disposed of. It's not getting sold off for rags somewhere outside the country or anything like that.
Okay.
So again, that's why when folks, it's interesting when they ask us what we can accept. If something's really ratty and bad shape, you probably shouldn't. You should just get rid of it. But bottom line is, we grade it, look at it. Majority of it gets able to be reused. There is a little bit that you just really can't reuse, and they dispose of it in an appropriate manner.
Right. Okay. You can always go. People can sort through themselves and hold on to those items that somebody else won't use, and use them.
Yeah.
As car washing rags and house cleaning rags. And
Right.
As well, which is a helpful, step in the process. Neha, I'm going to turn it back to you to wrap up. It is after 1, so we do owe everyone the opportunity to let them go about their day.
Sure. And again, we are so thankful to all of you who joined today and for sharing your thoughts in the chat, as well as asking questions, and for all the speakers to give us their thoughts and answer those questions in so much detail. And we appreciate your patience to stick with this through beyond the actual original time limit. We definitely want to gather as many comments that we could not address today over email, and you have all our emails. We will also be sending out the recording of this webinar, so you can get to some of the parts that you perhaps missed. And with that, I will say have a great weekend, and let's start this new year with a new us. So with that empowerment, I will let you all go back to your days.
Thank you, Neha.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.
All right. See you soon.
And happy
Thank you.
Valentine's Day, all.
Oh, yeah. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.